Coming up.
Always leave the cables in place.
Oh, I was going to say the whole thing just to be different.
Yeah, but you always get it in time, mate.
God, I'm so hungry I need to fuel my fire inside.
About refugees.
And that is something that everyone can learn from.
And the dog did not bark.
That was impressive.
Like your Jesus.
All producers listening, check that out.
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that? Hello and welcome to today's episode of How Do You Say That, the podcast from britishvoiceover.co.uk. Let me introduce my co-host and partner in crime, Mark Rice.
Hello.
Now, hello. Today's fun fact about Mark is that he is really rubbish at listening to song lyrics properly.
Yeah, I really am.
Yeah.
And then I make it up in my head what I think it might be, and I get it wrong. And my husband goes, no, that's not right. And I go, yes, it is. It's always been that. And we argue about it. But he's always right and I was wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. My co-host is Sam Boffin, who couldn't get her audio interface to work roughly 5 minutes ago and had to do an emergency switch out. So I'm glad it's working now.
Yeah, so am I. And I'm glad that I left the other lead in the booth, actually, because there was a point where I was going to unpick the whole thing and thought, I'll never need that audio interface again.
Oh, and that is something that everyone can learn from.
Yes. Always leave the cables in place.
Always. Well, of course, we also have a special guest this week who is voiceover and broadcaster Nigel Williams. Hello, Nigel.
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
I love a conversation about an audio interface.
You were telling us a moment ago you're a bit of an engineer at heart.
Yeah, I'm not a, sorry, Samantha, boffin, but I am somebody who understands and likes technology. I've just never really been obsessed with it. I like to sort of know how the world works, but I've never really been someone who really gets into bit rates and stuff like that. You know,
You've lost me.
For me, I've always had this saying, which is basically the machines work for us. We don't work for them. And if you're in a position where you are slaving over a piece of equipment, get rid of it. Get something simpler.
That's true.
Wise words. Well, look at all the tips we've already picked up.
I know.
And we're only minutes in.
Indeed.
No, I'm going to tell you a bit about Nigel. Now, Nigel has had an illustrious career in broadcasting. He is all about the radio, except when he's on the telly or doing something completely different with his voice. He has presented a really wide range of programmes for the BBC and commercial radio, and he is currently the breakfast show host at Jazz FM. And as a voiceover artist,
Nice.
Nigel was chosen as the image voice of ITV, recording promos and TV programmes, really TV programmes as well. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. He's also the commercial voice as well, obviously. He was the voice behind the PC World campaign during the long-running Where in the World ad series.
Can you sing it?
I can't. I'm not
Where
going to.
in the world?
PC World.
There you go.
Well, he also featured on TV spots for Shreddies, Ariel, Intel and Cheerios. And I love this because Nigel's voice was identified as universally comprehensible for an international audience by the United Nations, who commissioned him to read an extensive series of e-learning packages for its training programme.
Yeah. Do you know, I had to sign all kinds of, non-disclosures for that because you're really teaching people how to intervene in a civil war, part 3. And, it's not really quite as dramatic as that. But certainly things like clearing up the mess after there's been a civil war, re-establishing national or local government, or dealing with drug cartels, or all these kind of things. But they still do it. I don't think I'm outside the bounds of what I'm allowed to talk about. But they still do it like every e-learning course, So
Do they?
Yeah. Other voiceovers listening to this will relate to this in the fact that they're huge jobs, and moments of it is fascinating because of the content, but it just goes on and on and on. And I would sit in the voiceover booth with a bottle of wine. And,
No, Nigel.
Yes.
I'm sure you can't say that. I'm sure you can't admit to that.
Well,
Drunk and in charge of a UN script.
Yeah, nobody ever said, well, that sounded a bit slurred. So I thought I'm lucky enough to get away with it. So I did.
I've always thought drinking and broadcasting is possibly the most dangerous combination.
Yes.
Worse than drinking and driving.
University comprehensible, even with a glass of wine in your hand. Now, that is an impressive thing.
Let's have a look at our first script of the show and ask, how do you say that?
How do you say that?
So this is something that I have been working on this week. It's a script for a museum, a sort of exhibit about people's lives in Switzerland. It's a verbatim script, so they've literally translated it from the Swiss. And when I got it, I heard the German translation as well.
Right.
Interestingly. And then they were going to layer my English voice on top. So I am a person. I'm one of two sisters in this. This is what I was.
Like a diary piece?
Yes, exactly like that.
see.
Like a diary piece. And so this is a little moment where she tells a story about her father.
So it doesn't matter that we are boys doing this?
No, that doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just a story.
Sure.
So it doesn't really matter if you're, it could have been a brother just as easily as a
Indeed.
sister. And of course, it's slightly, the translation of it is, there's a slight formality to it. I'll see what you do with that.
Yes. Shall I go first then?
Yes, you go first.
The door to the apartment and the door to the house were always open, as was the door to my father's study room. One Sunday, we were sitting in the gothic parlour of the apartment. Our father was taking a nap and our dog was asleep too. Then when father went down to the study room, he saw that someone had broken in. The burglar had tried to open the desk with a letter opener, but it broke. When that didn't work, the burglar went down to the basement and got a steel block. He used that block to break open the furniture and took the money. Fortunately, none of us heard anything and the dog did not bark. That was impressive. Originally, when I read that, I wondered if that should have been unfortunately none of us heard anything.
Well, no, because if they had heard anything...
Oh, if they'd interrupted him, yeah.
Then they might have... I mean, if he got a steel block and was
Yes,
intended
good.
to take the money, probably not good to interrupt. Yeah, yes. Now, what was interesting about that was you were quite perfect in your delivery.
Okay,
And
yes.
often when I'm asked to do verbatim stuff, they
yes.
want me to be a bit
More characterful.
imperfect,
Yep.
a bit characterful.
Yep.
We also had a big discussion on that last line as to
Really?
whether it was impressive that the dog didn't bark or whether the whole thing was impressive.
Oh, I see. Yes, absolutely. Yes,
What did you
very
think
much
it
so.
was, out of interest?
I thought it was impressive that the dog did not bark.
As I did, but that wasn't apparently the right. That wasn't the right inference.
That's always the
so
way.
that's interesting, isn't it?
Oh, I was
Yeah.
going to say the whole thing just to be different.
Yes.
Not that I had.
And actually, we changed that last line because of it.
I didn't actually think about putting it in character. I really should. Thinking about it now, I really should have put it, yes, in more characterful terms. Absolutely. But
So, Nigel, would you like to have a go at this one?
We'll give it a whirl.
Good.
Let's see. The door to the apartment and the door to the house were always open, as was the door to my father's study room. One day we were sitting in the gothic parlour of the apartment and our father was taking a nap and our dog was asleep too. Then, when our father went down to the study room, he saw that someone had broken in. The burglar had tried to open the desk with a letter opener, but it broke. When that didn't work, the burglar went down to the basement and got a steel block. He used that block to break open the furniture and took the money. Unfortunately, none of us heard anything, and the dog did not bark. That was impressive.
you went unfortunately. It's actually fortunately.
Ah, there you go. There's your lyric bit
Because
there for
that's
you.
what I thought it was. It told the story really. I mean, I followed
did.
the story. It followed the story really easily as well.
There was a lot
Yeah.
of drama in that.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of drama. Yeah. So,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the unfortunately works better for me, but yeah. Okay.
But on the other hand, that isn't what she said.
No,
But you-
that's not what the script said either.
Well, you see, I would have definitely contracted. Everyone contracts now. You would say
Yeah.
didn't bark.
Yes,
You know,
I
nobody
did. I
said
contracted
did not
everything.
bark.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
And interestingly, we've had a number of discussions on the podcast already that some clients really love it, some don't mind it, and some absolutely do not want you to change anything. So I'm
Yes.
guessing, Sam, this client didn't mind that.
Often with translations, of course, they've given you almost a formal version of what they've translated. So when I knew that, and it was also sort of diary verbatim.
Yep.
I contracted everything. Everything I could contract, I contracted.
I'd love to hear what you did with it.
Okay. The door to the apartment and the door to the house were always open, as was the door to my father's study. One Sunday, we were sitting in the gothic parlour of the apartment. Our father was taking a nap and our dog was asleep too. And then, when father went down to the study room, he saw someone had broken in. The burglar had tried to open the desk with a letter opener, but it broke. When that didn't work, the burglar went down to the basement and got a steel block. He used that block to break open the furniture and took the money. Fortunately, none of us heard anything and the dog didn't bark. That was impressive.
You were channeling the little girl there. Yeah, that was really impressive because I could tell that was a little. I could tell that was a little girl. My throat is not doing its thing. But that was really nice.
I love the phrasing in that. I thought it was lovely. It was a great arrangement, and maybe that's a tip for people, is not to be in too much of a rush. Those of us who end up doing these 30-second reads where they give you a 40-second load of copy. It's lovely just to actually be able to let it breathe, and the communication. And that was really really good, I thought, Samantha.
I think you. Well, thank you. I think you can. Of course, you're absolutely right. Quite often we get things that we're pushing an overwritten script into a much smaller space. But sometimes when we don't, it's just wonderful when we don't. I love it if we, because, and in this one actually, the original Swiss was a much longer language. So, even with those pauses, even with that, because the Swiss runs along underneath.
Oh, I see.
So even then I wasn't filling the space.
So it's room to breathe and all of these things makes it much nicer and much easier, actually, doesn't it, with the English?
Yeah.
I actually have a thing with Austrian Airlines, which has been going for quite some time. And
nice.
So they have Austrian German, so they always do the Austrian German voice first, and then inevitably ends up with them saying to me, "Could you read that a little bit slower?" And they haven't, because what the Germans do, where they stack all their verbs at the end of sentences, and they're going, gefunden, and then there's all of this going on, and you're just going, yeah, the guy walked through a door. How much gap can you put into that? In fact, many ways, just generally, it's actually more difficult to fill a space than it is to speak really quickly.
How do you say that? You have also bought us a script, Nigel. So can you tell us a bit about it?
It's a campaign for Quaker Oats, and with the cost of living crisis, the increase in the price of food because of the Ukraine war, I think that the brands are looking to see what they can do. One, to actually help customers, and two, to improve their image by doing something.
Absolutely.
That's a kind of more cynical view on it, but they're trying to say that they care. And you'll see this all the time. They're giving away millions of free packets of porridge. Well, let's face it, it's really healthy food. So, I can pull apart the English, which we will do in a minute, but so you have to care, obviously, and you have to sound natural, and that is so often the case, where they go, we want this message put over, but we want it done like you would say it.
Caring and natural are two of Sam's top points. I reckon this is in your wheelhouse, Sam.
Yes. Very rarely in 30 seconds, though.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is very true.
It's one of those sort of three things. You can either have it or you can have it in 30 seconds.
Very good point.
Yes, let's have a little go at it then. Okay, right. This winter has been tough for a lot of people, and not everyone has access to a warm and nutritious breakfast to start the day and fuel their fire inside. That's why Quaker is partnering with charities like FareShare to donate up to 2.5 million warm breakfasts to communities across the UK who need it. Pick up your promotional pack of Quaker Oats, and each purchase means another hot breakfast donated.
It was very warm. I thought you got the warm, considering that was a fast old read there.
Yeah.
I have to say I am scared of the word breakfasts. As a plural is not a very nice word to say out loud.
No, breakfast.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, you've made me think about it now. I didn't think about it when I did it.
That's the thing. I like that. And you got the message across. This is what I'm saying. You're good at this kind of stuff, Sam.
I think I could have been better with my breath control, if I'm honest, with that middle one. I think I could have done a better reading of that.
What do you think about, Sam? What's going through your head at that point? Are you thinking about the people who can't afford breakfasts, or are you thinking about the words?
Well, actually, I'm thinking about the breakfasts. I'm quite hungry, actually. No, I'm thinking about the breakfasts. I'm picturing bowls of Quaker oats with a lovely sort of in that ready break way with this,
Yeah, do you know what I was thinking about the ready break?
So I think that's what I was thinking about. And I was thinking, if I was thinking about anybody at all, I was thinking about children and porridge.
Nice. Well, I think that's a great thing, really. You should, a bit of method is a good thing.
Sam's very into visualisation, aren't you, Sam? So the acting background, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Whereas I'm more a words on the page boy, I have to say.
Yeah, but you always get it in time, mate.
I go quick, absolutely. Well, let's give it a go, shall we? Here we go. This winter has been tough for a lot of people, and not everyone has access to a warm and nutritious breakfast to start the day and fuel their fire inside. That's why Quaker is partnering with charities like FareShare to donate up to 2.5 million warm breakfasts to communities across the UK who need it. Pick up your promotional pack of Quaker oats, and each purchase means another hot breakfast donated.
I liked that. That was a very warm read for
Punchy.
you.
Yes.
I thought it needed a kind of calmer, friendlier read. That I hope I got it in the time.
You did. I would imagine you did. You lent into your. Now, you did pick up your promotional pack, and I thought, should you have lent into your? And then I was looking at it and unpicking it and thought, no, you probably is a good one to lean into, actually, if you're going to lean into something there.
Because we're asking individuals to go and pick up theirs, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would have. As you were going through, I was thinking the emphasis on important words was quite good. Like 2.5 million warm breakfasts. I mean, that's nice. It's a 2.5 million. So that is a great thing.
And I tried to hit Quaker and FareShare.
Yes.
Because that's always important in a script, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But there's always a counter to that, is that when one does that, then it's not natural conversation. No. So sometimes the director will sort of go, yeah, it's okay, it's probably a bit silly. Just do it, and think less. So yeah, it depends. It depends what they want, doesn't it? I've got a particular area of this script which I really don't like, and I think is very difficult, bearing in mind they wanted it being conversational, and that is and fuel their fire inside. When have any of us ever said, "Oh God,
exactly.
I'm so hungry, I need to fuel my fire"?
It's just a sales line, isn't it? That's all it is.
And in actual fact, if they'd have stopped it after a warm and nutritious breakfast, that would have been fine.
To start the day. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. Can we hear how you did it, though, Nigel? Because I'm fascinated now.
Yeah, I really disengaged, actually. Not in the meaning that I wasn't interested, but it was just really very light. This winter has been tough for a lot of people, and not everyone has access to a warm and nutritious breakfast to start the day and fuel their fire inside. That's why Quaker is partnering with charities like FareShare to donate up to 2.5 million warm breakfasts to communities across the UK who need it. Pick up your promotional pack of Quaker oats, and each purchase means another hot breakfast donated.
Oh, that was lovely, actually. There's more conversation. It felt... Yeah, it did. It felt really warm. I felt as though I really knew your voice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it kind of really resonated. It felt really,
Well, what I did with the fuel fire inside is I broke it off.
Yeah.
To start the day and fuel their fire inside. And I thought, if I do that, I'm almost, kicking it out of the script. And that's how I got comfortable with that. But outside of that, I would, just think of the people. I mean, Mark, with the 2.5 million, I think you got that right. The fact that that's really important.
What I really liked, was the fact that you weren't overly precise with anything, which I really liked, because I think that's, that's what gives it that. I hate to use it, authenticity. That authenticity, but it gives it a nice, a really normal, natural, ordinary feel in the nicest way.
Yeah, we all spend our time trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the clients are just saying, we don't want that. We want what's really out there.
Ordinary.
Yep.
Yes, or just, sometimes even quirky. I mean, just think of the number of really big campaigns you hear at the moment. You go, that voice is frankly awful. And yet it's conveying sort of some kind of, reality, if you like.
How do you say that?
So this is the moment that we really love.
Yes.
It's the wild card
Hooray.
bit. So let's see if we can approach these scripts a different way.
Different, yes.
So Nigel, can you pick one of these scripts and give Mark a new motivation?
Be kind.
Yeah, shall we pretend that we're trying to squeeze it into one of those situations where the producer has sent you the script and you go, yeah, that's a 40, no problem. And they go, yeah, and it's a 20-second ad. And you go, well, I'm going to have to sub it. Oh, no, we can't sub it. The client's written, the client has signed it off.
Oh, God.
So you have got to do this script.
So please, you got this, Mark.
As fast as you possibly can.
All right, as fast as I can, but try not to lose all of the meaning of it. Right, okay, all right, here we go. The door to the apartment and door to the house were always open, as was the door to my father's study room. One Sunday, we were sitting in the gothic parlour of the apartment. Our father was taking a nap and our dog was asleep too. Then when father went down to the study room, he saw that someone had broken in. The burglar had tried to open the desk with a letter opener, but it broke. When that didn't work, the burglar went down to the basement and got a steel block. He used that block to break open the furniture and took the money. Fortunately, none of us heard anything and the dog did not bark. That was impressive.
Whoa, whoa.
Woo! I don't think I
love
breathed, did I?
Oh, no, that's brilliant.
I was breathing through my gills.
Accuracy was absolutely fantastic. And if we ever needed a lesson to how the meaning of something is lost by crushing words together, there it is.
I agree with you, totally.
All producers listening, check that out.
Because you just go with, you've got to just try and get the words in, especially if they say you can't sub it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, see, there's you can't bring much to it at all, can you?
No, you've just got to get the words out, exactly.
Yeah.
Nigel, we get to pick one for you now, so be warned. And Sam's going to suggest it.
I do. I have a number of ideas, actually. Ooh. But what I think I'm going to go for is as if you are, I don't know if I've done this before, as if you're addressing a large crowd of people. I went to a rally last night about refugees. And the guys on the top of the bus really kind of spoke to the crowd. So I would like you to really speak to the crowd, the baying crowd of wonderful people.
And which script, Sam?
Ah, yes, well, the obvious script would be, this winter has been tough for a lot of people. So I don't want to do that.
Nice. I knew you were going to say that.
The door to the apartment.
Okay.
So as if you're addressing a friendly but enormous crowd, like you're Jesus, basically.
Okay, right. Okay, here we get him.
He's stepping back.
The door to the apartment and door of the house were always open, as was the door to my father's study room. One day we were sitting in the gothic parlour of the apartment. Our father was taking a nap and our dog was asleep too. Then our father went down to the study room. He saw that someone had broken in. The burglar had tried to open the desk with a letter opener, but it broke!
Boo, boo.
Boo! When that didn't work, the burglar went down to the basement and got a steel block. Well, he used that to break open the furniture and he took the money, would you believe?
Woo!
Fortunately, none of us heard anything. And the dog did not bark. Now, my friends, that was impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. From the top of a bus. Yes. It's a very, very different delivery, isn't it? It's one of those. Were you visualising the crowd, Nigel?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I always try to get into the zone of thinking what that situation is like.
Yes.
And certainly in my time when I did ITV programs, when you were sort of sat in a booth somewhere or other, and yet there was a live studio audience.
Yep.
They were always going, can you go really over the top? And you would be in there screaming, and they go, yeah, have you got any more? You know,
Squeeze some more juice from it.
So by the time, you know, and of course then the pitch of your voice goes up.
Yes.
Well, we also really want to hear your take on these scripts, so we've put the scripts in the show notes, and if you'd like to have a try at one of them, send it on MP3 to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk. That would be great, and we can pick maybe one or two to play in an upcoming episode.
As well as your MP3s, if you've got any voiceover questions you would like answers to, you can send your question for future episodes to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk.
Our question this week is, how can you get a low-paying client to come up to standard rates? What do you tell them? Nigel, have you got something that you can say, or do you just leave that to an agent?
No, I do both, and depends on what it is. If there's potential for earning big bucks, then I would kick it to an agent.
Me too.
But more often than not, it's something where I would say to people, if they lowballed me, I was saying, you know, you're really that fee is really for somebody who's in startup, and I've been doing this for a very long time. And like you, I've got a mortgage and family to feed, so the fee's going to be this much, or you're going to have to give it to a startup person.
Sam, do you have a tried and tested way of bringing low ballers up?
I'm always very specific that my rate includes all the things it includes. So in other words, I go back with this is my, you know, studio fee, and it includes all the prep,
X, Y, and Z.
all the recording,
yeah.
all the delivery, all the, you know, and one round of reasonable pickups and everything like that. I've found that once you lay that out there and they realise that actually it's not just you taking 5 minutes of your time to give them the voiceover. So I try and beef it up as much as I can.
Totally.
I have often, though, asked them what their budget is.
There are an awful lot of people that don't like doing that.
Have you ever had somebody say, actually, no, we can pay you a bit more than that, by the way?
Only once. Only ever once.
So it is good, actually, to let them have the first move, even if you possibly do it. I don't like that, what are your rates? I often say, well, it depends. What do you want? What is it you know, what is the script? Where is it going to be used? And how long for? All of these things will change the rate. And
Absolutely.
But I like to price honestly. So I will, once you give me this information, I'll come up with a figure and then we can work it out from there. I think that's fair enough.
I find for clients that don't understand usage, Hugh Edwards, our good friend Hugh Edwards, wrote a really great article for Gravy for the Brain with a bunch of links as to why people have to pay usage. And I send that to clients all the time and they come back going, oh, I'd never realised that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Which is really useful. And I will put that link to that article in the show notes because it's very helpful for people.
Thank you so much, Nigel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in and sharing all of that. Gosh, all of that knowledge that you got from.
Yes,
I mean, how many
totally.
years? I never said. How many years have you been? You know, a working voiceover. Yeah.
I started in radio, and then my agent sort of said, do you want to earn some more money? Send me a cassette. So that...
Okay.
That dates us all, yes.
So, but that's interesting. You've presumably had to keep up with all of the changing trends.
I would say probably, let's see, 94... Yeah, maybe about 26 years, maybe something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say round about that much time. Yeah, and I think there was an advantage of doing it in the late 90s and, you know, early noughties because digital technology hadn't really taken on. So you had to be able to read well. You were only going to studios.
Yes, of course.
I mean, you know, local radio was doing ISDN lines and things like that. But the big boy stuff was all done in Soho. And you got to meet people, you know, who were really good at what they did, and they would coach you, so you'd get your mentoring there.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It is what worries me about now, actually, in a lot of ways, because there isn't that sort of training in the same way going on, because you don't necessarily get to work with other people who are, you know, in front of you. That does worry me slightly. It's a very different model now.
You could say to yourself, if you're looking for a leg up, you know, you could say, actually, I'm not so bad at this. I'm okay at this, you know, because you could compare yourself up against other people. Whereas now you can only, you know, if you're only doing online, you have to hear people's finished product and look at what you can do now.
Yep.
You can time flex, you can pitch change, you can just do everything and make yourself sound better than you really are. So it's
which is why we are putting warts and all into this podcast so that people can see where it goes. Nigel, thank you so much for joining us. We've come to the end of the podcast. We'll also be putting today's scripts in the show notes so that you can have a read yourself. Have a go and send it to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk. We'd love to hear what you can do with them.
And of course, it's the same email address for all your voiceover questions too.
Yes, please like and subscribe the podcast and tell your VO mates and reshare our Facebook posts, all that kind of thing, if you would.
That's about it for this week, but we will be back next week with more scripts and another voiceover guest when we will be asking all together now. How do you say that?
How do you say that?